Alright, hello guys. In today's video, we're going to be talking about a strong storm that's going to make its way into the Gulf and affect a lot of those coastal states in the Gulf, including Florida, and even a little bit up the East Coast for states like South Carolina and North Carolina. We'll talk more about that as we head on through the video, but before I get started with this video though, I would ask that you do subscribe if you do like weather-related content, and also be sure to share it with your friends and family if they do live in the affected regions. Now let's get right into things. We're looking at our storm track map here, and I'm going to reveal the wording for all three of these. You probably saw it in the thumbnail anyway, but I'm going to do it one at a time just so that you don't lose focus on what I'm trying to talk about here. So in our lighter green shade here, we're looking at showers and lighter rain. There could be areas of heavier rain, but for the most part, I think things are going to be much lighter within this light green area. Now, let's add our second layer, and as we get into this second layer of green, that's where we're looking at heavy rain. The rain is going to be a lot heavier here and a lot more consistent, I would say. There is still the chance that some of these areas do not see heavy rain, as well as the chance for the lighter green, again, to see heavier rain. Let's add our third layer, and this is our strong winds layer. I'm looking at the potential for some pretty gusty winds here. We're going to look at our total wind in this video as well, so stay tuned for that portion if you are curious about how much wind we could expect. In the two green areas, there is the chance for pretty strong winds, but the red areas are the most prominent for sure. Alright, now we're about to move on, and we're going to look at some model forecasts here to take a look at what areas could expect what impacts with this storm. So first things first, we're going to be looking at our actual cyclonic vorticity, and you might be wondering, what the heck is cyclonic vorticity? Well, all you need to know is this is a really good tool for us to tell where energy is, where the low pressure system is located, and you know what, who's going to be feeling effects from this one. So we can see right here that most of the energy is located over the borders of Texas and Oklahoma there. And this is going to make its way south into the Gulf, and actually if you were to look at radar at this point, there would be nothing. So that's the reason this is a good tool, because on our simulated radar, you would have no clue that there's even anything going on here. But when we take a look at our cyclonic vorticity, we can see a lot of energy. You can see that blob of just reds there, and that's a really good indication that we have something that is brewing within that region. That is by Friday afternoon or evening, by the way, December 20th. So let's move on towards that night. So it's going to be about 2 a.m. on Sunday morning, December 22nd. So this is actually 2 nights later. And we can see that it's made its way into the Gulf. Let's move on one more frame, and we will see that it is outside of Florida, and it's gone through Florida. And then it's basically not going to make its way up the coast. Now we're about to take a look at some more model data. We're going to start looking at our simulated radar so you can tell where the heaviest of the rain is going to set up, and then after that we're also going to take a look at our total precipitation, so how much rain you could expect, and also how much wind everybody can expect. Alright, so real quick I wanted to show you our wind speeds and streamlines at 250 millibars, and this is super high up in the air, and this really gives us a good idea of where the jet stream is set up. And I wanted to talk about this because in our weekly forecast I talked about the potential for a big time winter storm for the East Coast, and this storm is actually what was the potential for that winter storm. There just isn't any connect that pulls it up the coast anymore, and there isn't cold air in place, so this ended up just being a really strong storm without any winter components. So we will see this one just head out to sea and not really harm the East Coast whatsoever. Now, this one had a ton of potential and would have been a very, very major blizzard probably actually for the East Coast if this one would have ended up going up the coast and the cold air was in place like what was originally modeled, but we don't have that. So I just wanted to show this map because this shows that we don't have anything to really pull it up the coast. Now, let's take a look at your simulated radar. We're going to start out, this is early Saturday morning, maybe about 2 a.m. December 21st. And we can see some showers brewing up there for Texas and areas in Louisiana as well as over the waters of the Gulf of Mexico. We see a lot of showers starting to develop. We see those yellows starting up for Texas, and this is really going to be the beginning of some really heavy shower development within that region. Let's move on towards Saturday morning about 9 a.m. And we see the low pressure system really starting to develop there in the middle of the Gulf. We also see those oranges and reds indicating very heavy areas of rain there for Louisiana and areas to the south over water. This is going to make its way towards Florida and really just slam Florida. Florida's going to get slammed by this one for sure. Now we're about to move on to where the radar is going to show those heavier showers move on to Florida, and we'll take a look at how heavy these storms really could be. All right, taking a look at Saturday afternoon into the evening, we see just a super ominous look with that low pressure system just offshore of Florida. Maybe some showers heading in for southern Alabama and Mississippi, as well as the panhandle of Florida and some southern areas of Georgia as well. Louisiana, the very eastern regions, are still getting some showers as well. But really, the major thing is over water, we see this very heavy area of oranges, reds, even dark reds in there. That's just indicating very, very heavy precipitation. Let's move on towards Saturday night by nightfall, and we can see that by Saturday night, we're seeing those oranges and yellows move onshore to Florida to the north of Tampa, and this is just going to lead to very, very heavy rain. Let's move on towards Sunday morning time, and you can see by time we reach sunrise, well, this is probably a bit after sunrise. This is probably by 9 a.m. or 8 a.m. here, and we can see that the showers, those heavier areas of showers, have actually already crossed over Florida, and they're offshore now of the east coast of Florida. But we do have another heavy area of showers developing up there for the panhandle, so this one's kind of going to backtrack and definitely continue to bring showers and thunderstorms for a few days for sure. Now, as we head towards Sunday night, we can see those start to develop more and more, and then northern Florida is really getting those reds and ominous looks, but we can see our original area of very, very heavy rain as well offshore by this point. As we head towards Monday morning, it's pretty much all said and done. Finally, the precipitation is done for, and we pretty much start to clear up, especially with those very, very heavy showers. So we're about to take a look at your total wind, where we're going to be able to tell you guys how much wind you could expect for your area if you are in these affected regions, which is going to be super useful. And then we're also going to take a look at your total rainfall according to the models. All right, now let's take a look at that. So we can see this is going to be by Saturday morning time, and this is when the wind is mostly going to be affecting Louisiana. Florida, it hasn't really made its way over, but in those green shades, we definitely could be looking at 20 to 30 knots winds. And that's actually going to be pretty strong already, but we do see those yellows showing up for some very coastal regions of Louisiana, and that's going to be very strong, as in the yellows, we're looking at about 30 to maybe even 40 knot winds as we approach the reds. We can see some of those over water. Let's move on towards Sunday late afternoon / early evening, I would say. And we see a lot of those yellows and reds there making their way very close to Florida there, especially on the panhandle. And then on the other side of Florida, we can see them pretty close to areas like Jacksonville and even coastal Georgia as well. We see the yellows make their way all the way up to the South Carolina coast. So things could get really gusty for a lot of folks out here. Again, in the greens, you're already looking at 20 to 30 knots, but in the yellows and reds, we're looking at 30 to 40 knots, 30 in the yellows, 40 in the reds. So very, very strong winds for a lot of coastal regions here. And then our last frame here, our last wind frame, and we can see that those reds really make their way as the low pressure system moves to where it's on the east side of Florida's coast. We really see those reds approach Georgia and South Carolina. So there's going to be very, very windy conditions for a lot of folks out here in the southeast coasts. Now let's take a look at your total rain. Here's the GFS, and we can see in the light greens to dark greens, we're looking at basically any amount of rain to half an inch of rain, which half an inch of rain is already a lot for just 2 days. Then in the blues, we're looking at half an inch to 2 inches of rain. So we see some of that in Texas, and then some of that for the extreme southeast there. And then in the pinks and purples, we look at 2 to 6 inches of rain, 2 in the pinks, 6 in the purples. And then in those darker reds and yellows, that's where we're looking at 6 inches plus. So potential for Florida is 6 inches or more of rain, which is just a ton of rain. Definitely going to be soaked. But even if you're in the pink, you're looking at 2 inches or more, which is for a majority of Florida. So just a ton of rain falling. And then I also wanted to show the Canadian model real quick, which was showing a lot more widespread rain, especially with these pinks making their way all the way up to North Carolina, South Carolina, throughout Georgia, and Alabama, and a little bit of Mississippi as well. A lot more rain on the GEM model, which is the Canadian model. But definitely the GFS model is a little bit better in situations like this. But definitely it is possible that these heavier rains make it a little bit further north, and I indicated that in the beginning of the video as well. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Be sure to share it with your friends and family, as I said before, if they do live in these affected regions. And I hope to see you guys in the next video.